Hello everyone, my name is Saurabh Kumar and I welcome you all to my video series where we are covering AWS Amazon Web Service, where we have reached to part number 11, and in this particular session we will be covering about S3 static web hosting, where I'm going to demonstrate you practically how you can host a website by using S3 storage. Then we'll be talking about Glacier, what it is and what does it do. And then we are also going to have a look on S3 life cycle management rule. Plus we will see practical part of it also, that how we can create a rule according to the company requirement relevant to the S3 life cycle. So let's begin. So here first thing we have to be knowing that, because as I told you, today we are going to see how to host a website. So hosting website we are going to do today by simply using S3 storage. So just by using S3 storage without having anything else, we will be capable of hosting a website. Before I go for it, let me tell you that there are two type of web hosting. One we call it as a static web hosting, one is called as a dynamic, or we can call it a static website or dynamic website. So generally a static website is the one where you have one-way communication. You want to maybe share some informational website which I am telling you about. So those site comes under the category of a static. For example, let's say that CBSE board, or maybe NSSF, or maybe any other institution or organization who they just want to display their information on the web page to be known by the other users. That type of site will be called as just a static. For example, if I want to have my website where I will be just uploading information from my side and you will be just getting a view information, that's it. That kind of site we put them in a category of a static. Where we have a dynamic, basically used for all commercial sites, comes under dynamic. And like if you see about any company sites, they comes under dynamic, and they also give some other functions like where you can create your user account, you can put your information there, you can sign up there, you can upload your information there. So those sites will be coming under the category of dynamic. So S3 will be allowing you to host a static website, not a dynamic, and meaning that it will be just helping you to have a website which is having some informational, you can say informational categories website. We will be able to host them on S3. So generally for web hosting, to host a website, we have two plan, A plan and B plan. In A plan, which is generally being used everywhere in a broad label, that if you have a small organization also running, if you have big organization also running, they always use this method. They have a server. They use a server computer which can be either Linux, either Windows. On the top of that, they will be running a web service also. So if you are using maybe Linux, it will be using Apache. If you are having Windows, it will be using IIS. So any of the web service will be running there. On the top of that, you need one domain space, like whatever domain name you want to have. For example, your company is ABC, so you need a domain, for example www.abc.com. so that name you are going to buy, or you are going to get from GoDaddy or other sites, those who sells the domain space. Thereafter, you need a dedicated IP address, a public IP address for your website. Then you need a web page or a website which you want to host. And if your website needs database, definitely then you need a database server there. So this is the method which is being used by all different type of organization. If you have a small organization, if you have a big organization, they always go for it. This pattern we also call it something like L for Linux, A for Apache, M and P. P here is representing PHP, M representing MySQL for database, A is representing Apache, L representing Linux. So some company, if they are using Linux operating system, Apache as a web service, MySQL as one of the most popular type of database server, and if you are using PHP to have your website, the code which you have used to create your website if you are using PHP. So it is known as a LAMP method, LAMP method. You may get some other methods too, like somebody uses WAMP. So if you are using this method where you have Windows, but on the top of that, by using some of the software or tools, you are running Apache again, and then you are using MySQL and you are using PHP. So this method will be called WAMP. We have even other tools like JAMP. So I'm not going in that area, but what I'm trying to tell you that there are two methods. One method which is generally used everywhere, it's a very common. The other method which we are going to use today in today's lesson, that we will be using S3 bucket. Last session we have discussed about S3 services, where we have learned how to create S3 bucket, how to create folder, how to upload a file and all those things. We have talked about version and all. So today we are going to use S3 bucket, and that bucket we are going to use to host our website. We will be only what we need now is a website or a web page which you want to update or which you want to have there on this web server. So just you need web page, and that web page we are going to just put on the S3 bucket and we will deploy it. We are going to see that we will be able to access that website from anywhere if you share it publicly, if you make it publicly. So to perform this practical, first thing what we need is, because we are going to use this B method, what we need very first thing, that we need a web page or a website which we are going to use just to do some practical. So if you already have a website, if you already have a web page created either in PHP or HTML somewhere, then you can use it for your practical purpose. If you are not having, then we are going to just use some HTML basic code to create a small web page, and that web page I am going to show you how to host it, how to keep it on the S3 bucket. So let me share a screen here where I have written some of the code here. It's a very basic HTML code. This is, you can use a simple notepad. In the notepad you will be just typing some basic code. For example, if you want to make a site, you will be starting with like this, HTML. Then in the HTML, first you are going to add, that is head. And in the head, what you want to have, maybe you want to have a title of a website. What is the meaning of title? When you open a website, for example, if I show you from here, I go to Chrome. So when you access any website, for example, if I access Google, so the name which appear here is called as a title, right? So for example, if you go to Facebook, if you go to Gmail, what name appear here, that name is called as a title of your website. So what name you want to have, that you are going to keep it here in the title. For example, I say title, and I give the name of this file, title name, maybe I give just Saurav, and then title close. This was the all about my title. So this is how we create. Let me even save this file and I will start showing you how does it work. So just go to save as and save anywhere. Maybe I want to save it on the desktop with the name abc.html. Always keep in mind, this is the extension need to be there, otherwise it's not going to work like a web page. And make here all file. So it is going to be showing like abc.html. Click on save. Let me go to my main screen here, desktop. Here I have saved this abc.html file. So if you will double click this one, no, it is going to open like this. You see, right now I have just made the title, so it is just showing me here the name of the site. Title name is Saurav. If you start adding some information there, if you start adding some information, it is going to be added on the website too. For example, if I add here, like right now, first let me close the head now, then I will be able to add the body. So slash head means closing the heading part, head part. Now I'm going to start the body. In body, what you want to keep, you can start putting from here. You can go method like, for example, h1 header 1, and you can type something here like welcome to my first page. Then you can close the header. Then you can close the body. So I'm just telling you how generally a programmer or a web developer, they use HTML or PHP. They just start writing very big code. I'm just trying to tell you with one or two command here. So by using this method, you will be able to make a website. So for example, I save at this moment and then I go to my browser. I refresh my page. You will see here is my heading first. If I use maybe this line, I copy, I put here with some different name. We are learning now AWS. So this will be added as a second line. If I go back here, clear? So this way we generally create a website. So heading, title is going to be remain there. Then heading is just a kind of defining how the font will be, the condition will be. Alright, so the same way I have also used, I have used some other commands also here, and after typing these all information, I have saved it as an HTML file with the name index.html on my desktop. If I show you on my desktop, this is the file I am talking about, index.html. This is the file I am going to use there to upload my website. Let me open it and show you how does it look like. So this page contains welcome to Saurav IT training page. Some links I have just added, nothing else. So this is simple command files. If I open it with Notepad, you will be able to see this file detail, what I have typed here. If you want to add something, you can add also. For example, maybe I want to add some more information here. Let's say that mark you type some information here that offer valid till end of today / marquee to close it. If I click on save, now if I try to open the site, you will be able to see that one marquee is also going to move on this screen, offer valid till end of today. So this way, whatever information you have on your website, no, it will just appear here. But we are not learning right now how to make a website. We are just learning that if you have a website, how we are going to host it, how we are going to have it, how we are going to get it when we have the S3 bucket. How we are going to use S3 bucket to upload this file there, and this will become like a public website. Anybody can see it, anybody can access it. So now to do this, first thing we were required to have this file. Then once we have this already file, now we are going to follow these steps. Very first step I am going to follow, that is I am going to create a bucket and I'm going to upload that HTML file on that bucket. So whatever steps are there, I'm going to just demonstrate you directly from my browser. So let me go to my browser. I log in with my AWS account. So first thing I need is I need to log in to my Amazon Web Service account. So I go to sign in to the console. This is my free tier account, so I will be able to perform all the practical from here also. I just define my user credential and my password. So after typing password, I'm just going to click on sign in button here. So once we are logged in, we are going to look for the service, that is S3 service. So either you can go with the help of services list. In the storage you will get S3 here, or either you can search also by typing S3 here. Currently if I see, there is no any bucket available right now in my S3. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bucket here. Last session we have already learned how to create bucket. So simply type create click on create bucket. Here you need to have a unique name, because it is a DNS compliant bucket name it require. So it's supposed to be unique. Nobody should be already having that name of their bucket. So for example, maybe I'm going to type here the name, that is Saurav Wave 01. That will be my bucket here. Then I need to choose my region, because bucket we always create a region specific. So I'm going to choose any region here. Then I go with the next. We have learned about all these terms and all. So I'm going to keep all version, meaning that I want to have enable versioning. By default versioning is not enable, guys, so I'm going to make it enable. So we have learned what is the benefit of having versioning. Whenever we will have any change there, it will create a new version ID, and by using that version ID we will be able to restore our data. So versioning is a very nice practice that you should always enable it whenever you are creating a bucket, especially when we talk about enterprise level. They always have versioning enable, and there is no any special cost for it also. It is not a paid service or something. Then other things like log request, I am just leaving it blank. I don't need log event right now. I don't need any specific tag. I don't need any service of cloud trial. Encryption, last day I have shown you how many type of encryptions we have. So in case if you go on it, you will be able to choose which encryption. For as of now I don't need, so I can leave it also. Explanation I have already given you, that's why I'm not using it. For me, my focus is today to just create a bucket and go for the next practical. So I'm just leaving everything else like a default, and I go with the next. Even this one I'm going to leave it default as of now, and I'm going to click on create a bucket. So as we know, bucket is a container which is going to contain any file, any folder. Last day we have learned how to create folder, how to upload file. So right now I go inside of it, this bucket, there is nothing. I can make a folder also, and then I can keep uploading files, or I can directly upload the file also. It is just a container. So for today practice, let me just go to directly upload and add the file. Which file I need to add today? The index file which we have created with the help of HTML. So that file I select and click on open. This is the file. I click on upload. So the file has been uploaded. Especially if you have a look at this point, it is showing you some presentation here, some icon type of thing which is showing like a open bracket, close, and then all. So this represents that this file is in a HTML file. This is what we have. And right now what is our storage class is? Last day we also discussed about a storage class, different storage class. So what we did up to now, that in S3 service we created a bucket. Inside the bucket we uploaded the file. This is the task we have finished up to now. So here you see, create a bucket, upload a HTML file. This is the task we are done with. Now what we need to do is, we have to look for the option that where from we are going to actually start the service of hosting a website. So for that, what we have to follow the path, that we have to go to the property of the bucket. In the property of bucket, you will be already getting a option of S3 bucket hosting. This is the option we have to look for, and therefrom we are going to start our this service. So let me go to my page. We go to our S3. We go to the bucket, and in the bucket by default it says overview, where it shows all the files and folder and everything plus version. we have to go to the option of properties now. So go to property, and here you see you get the detail of versioning. So you remember I have enabled it. And the third option is the one which we are right now going to look at, that is a static website hosting. This is the place where from we will be able to host the website. So by default it is disabled, and this is the default situation of all S3 bucket. So you are just going to click on it. It prompts you this three option. By default is disable web hosting, but you have two other choice: redirect request or use this bucket to host a website. So if you remember our heading today, our heading is to use a bucket to host a website. That's why I'm going to use this option. Use this bucket, the bucket which I created, to host a website. So now it is going to give you already an URL link, and this is the link will be for your website. If I try to copy this link, or if I say like this, for example, I copy it like this, it will be opening here. Right now it is giving me error. Why it is giving me error, I will explain now. So let me keep this here, that this is the URL, and this will become your URL for your website. You remember this is my bucket name, Saurabh Web 031. This is the service I am using from Amazon S3 website service, and this is my region where I am having this website, and this is the company who is helping me to do this task. So the total URL is http://bucket name .service name .region name .company name. This one is the URL. So if I share with you, if I share with anybody, they will be able to access or visit my website by using this URL. So let's have a look at this point now. We have to type here the first task, that is index document name, meaning that it is asking you what is the name of file in your bucket which is going to help him to display the website. So do you remember the file name? If I tell you from my desktop also, this is the file which I uploaded. So what is the name of it? Index.html. .html is not showing on this one because it is Windows machine. No extension will be hidden. But if I talk about here, if I again go for repetition, S3 inside the bucket, what is the file name is index.html. So this is the name it was asking me. So I go again to property, a static web hosting. I make it use this bucket, and here the name is going to be index.html. If your file name is abc.html, if your file name is john.html, saurabh.html, you will be typing exactly the same name of your file. Then here is maybe if you have any other page you have made especially for the error, that if the page is not available, like for example right now page is not available or something. So if you, rather than displaying this kind of things, if you want to display some special page, then you will be giving the name of that file. But right now I'm leaving them blank, and I just click on save. So this way you are done with hosting a website on S3 bucket. With the help of S3 bucket, we are done with keeping our website on S3 bucket. But the problem is, if somebody type this URL and they refresh or they try to access, they are not having access because access is denied. Why access is denied? Because if you remember about the last session, we discussed that by default when you create any bucket, so if I go to the here, I go to any bucket, by default this bucket is not available for public access. You see this option, edit public access setting. By default when you are creating, it was having an option to block all public access request or something. So I'm going to select it, edit public access setting, and this option which was there when I was creating this bucket, I'm going to uncheck it so that it will allow all public access. Right now if I check block all public access, so if I uncheck meaning that allow all public access, I click on save. So that's the first task. I have to type manually here confirm. So now I made my bucket public publicly access. Now the next task we are going to do, that is only making bucket public. That is not going to work for us, because we have learned in the last session that even if you make a bucket public access, inside of the bucket whatever file you upload, they are not going to be allowed by default for the public access. You have to make them public access one by one. So that is what the next task we are going to perform here. So now we go within that bucket and we see there is one index.html file. So in case if you have a folder which contains multiple files including your home page, so you are going to upload all of those files and folder here. Generally, if you have a company website, you will be getting it in a folder, and that folder may contain multiple pictures, index file, plus some folders, some DB and all. So you need to upload all of those folder and files in this bucket. And only the thing, when you was going in this property while defining the file name, you will just index.html or whatever file name you have for the home page, you are going to add there. That's it. So currently what we are going to do is we are going to this file also, because as of now we are still having no access. Access is denied. So to make it accessible, what we need to do is, for this file also I go to this file and I have to make it public. Successful. So my file has become also public now. Now if somebody go and see that they use this URL, they refresh, they will be getting my website there. So this is the complete. Now the task has been finished, how to upload or host a website by using S3. So what we have done, we have created we went to the S3 service. We created a first task was we created a bucket. Inside a bucket we uploaded the file. After that we went back to the bucket. In the bucket we went back to the property. From the property we went to the static website hosting area. There we made it use this bucket to host a website. We typed the name of the main file of your website. Then we clicked on save. We copy this URL. This is going to be useful to access the website. Thereafter, to make it publicly available, we went to bucket. We went to edit public access setting and we have removed it. We confirmed it. This is what we did. I am just repeating for better understanding. Then inside of the bucket we also went there. We choose the file. Inside the file we clicked on make public. This is the task only we did to make this website available on public domain. Anybody from whole the world, if they have this URL, they will be able to access this website from there. So once this site is accessible by anybody, they can see my website also. Plus, if your website is having maybe any link, for example, click following link to go to my AWS course. If somebody clicks on that, they are also going to be redirected to any other website. You see, this is the actually my course, AWS SA C02. This is the course on AWS Cloud Computing, the course which we are covering right now. So this way we can make a kind of following link also from my site. I can have my information. So this way generally you will be able to host any website, any static website by using S3 bucket. So what are the tasks we performed? I have mentioned here. We created a bucket, uploaded the file. We went through the property of bucket and we have used it to host a website. Inside the bucket, for the bucket we made public access, plus the file we also make it public access. Now we are done with it. Let's move to the next part here. Next thing we are going to talk about what are the basic use of S3 storage are. So in the previous session we have also talked about S3 storage details. We have learned everything about S3. So today I want to add one more information, that even S3 can be used to keep the backup of EBS. EBS is what? If you remember, elastic block storage. So when you create any instance on your AWS it is going to have attached hard disk, and that hard disk is nothing else, it is EBS. So if you have any instance running, generally you will create instance by the help of AMI, Amazon Machine Image. So by using Amazon Machine Image, you create an instance. In instance, you have always connected some of the EBS, some storage there, and those EBS snapshot you can take and you can keep store them on your S3 bucket. You know what is the meaning of snapshot, right? Snapshot means taking a kind of shot or a snap of your hard disk condition, whatever your status is, whatever your operating system status is. For example, if I explain it like this, let's say that today is 5th of any month, let's say that 5th of August, I'm just assuming, or maybe it is 25th of August. So on 25th of August on your computer you was having Windows, only Windows, nothing else. So you took a snapshot. Then on maybe 27th you install something extra there. Then on 26th, maybe 26th of August, you added something there. Maybe you have now Windows as well as maybe Office, MS Office. Then you took a snapshot. Then maybe on 30th of August, you have your Windows as well as MS Office as well as Adobe Photoshop maybe. So you can take again a snapshot of it. Maybe on 1st of September, you have removed Office. So now you are only remaining with Windows plus Adobe. You took a snapshot. So these all are the snapshot. What is the benefit of it? These are all keeping the snap of your machine state. So maybe today you want to go back to the previous condition as it was on 26th of August. 26th of August, your computer was having Windows plus Office. But right now what you have? Windows plus Adobe. So if you want to go to the previous situation, you can revert to the previous snapshot. You can apply the previous snapshot. So the machine will become as it was on 26th of August, where there was only Windows plus Office. That is what the use of snapshot is. So here it is telling that S3 storage can be also used to keep or store the snapshot of your EBS. Meaning that whatever your operating system running there, however the hard disk situation you have there in your C drive and all, that condition you can take a snapshot of it and you can keep there on the S3 bucket. So if you want to revert back, you will be using that snapshot to revert back to the previous condition. So that is also one more important use of S3 storage. Now the next thing we are going to discuss about the Amazon Glacier. So we have discussed also before about Amazon Glacier. It is generally used for what? To keeping the archive or keeping your backup. So that is what mentioned here. It is used for long term. If you have a data which you want to store for a very long term, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, 25 year, 50 year, then you can go for Glacier. If you want to even go for deep and deep, then there is an option called Glacier Deep. So it gives you a storage which is at lower cost because you are not going to retrieve data here and there every time. It is a Glacier where you are just keeping your data and you retrieve infrequently, and whenever you retrieve, that time only it will be costing for you. So this is a long-term low-cost archiving service, keeping archive file over there. It is designed for infrequently accessed data. You generally use Glacier to keep those data which is infrequently accessed. You will access very in some special case, maybe after 2 years, maybe after 5 years, or maybe once in a 5 year, maybe twice in a 2 year, something like that. Those kind of data you generally keep on the Glacier because it is cheaper compared to S3 when you are talking about the size of a storage, but it only cost you whenever or moreover you retrieve the data from there. So here is some of the information I have collected from the internet that generally the cost of Glacier is 1 cent per GB per month. Meaning that if you retrieve 1 GB in a month, you will be charged for 1 cent. If you go in big amount of size, so maybe if you go for per terabyte, 1 terabyte, if you retrieve the data in a year, you will be costed for $120 only, which is very very cheap if I compare with any other storage. It gives you a bit big data retrieval time because it is Glacier. Here you are keeping your old data, here you are keeping the storage which you want to retrieve very infrequent, so it has a long data retrieval time. It can be even sometime it can be in hours, or sometime it can be in a like 12 hour or 24 hour, like that also, depending on the condition. Then when we talk about, it is giving a retrieval cost only, compare with the storage cost. The cost is mostly actually depending on the retrieval, how many number of time you retrieve the data, you get the data from there. On the basis of that you will be charged, not on the basis of a storage which is applicable for S3. The durability, if you see here, you count as 9. So we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So 11.9 is the one of the top level durability. 11.9 means you can imagine 0.000000001% is only missing there for durability. So it is very highly durable actually. This data is very highly durable. That's the good point about Glacier. And the cost is on the basis of retrieval, not on the storage. The retrieval cost is around 1 cent per GB per month only. So this is what the basic view I am trying to tell you about the Amazon Glacier. Next point about Glacier is we have to be knowing some of the terms, some of the name we have to be aware about when we are working as a cloud professional, or if you're working with the public cloud. So in Amazon Glacier we have some terms like archive. What is archive? It's simple. Archive in Amazon Glacier, data whatever is stored, they are stored in archive format. We call them archive. Each archive can store up to 40 TB of data. One archive means, again I'm repeating, it's like a single file. So single file can be how big? 40 TB. If I compare you with the Amazon S3, if I ask you, Amazon S3 allow you to keep or upload how big the single file? So if you are using console, it allow you up to 160 GB. That's the single file size. If you use CLI or any other method, it allow you up to 5 terabyte. Similarly, here it is talking about a single file maximum size can be up to 40 terabyte for a single file, single archive file. Maybe you have 40 TB data, you can archive them, you can take a backup of them, and you can upload it there as a single file of 40 terabyte. There is a term called as a vaults. So if I compare with the S3, in S3 what we create? We create a bucket. So what is bucket is? Bucket is a container which contains your files, your data there, objects there. Similarly here we have the term called vaults. So vault is a container which is going to contain your archive files which you have there. Each AWS account, here is the limitation on the basis of account number. So each AWS account can support up to 1000 vaults, but there is no any limit that a single vault can have how many number of archive files. That is not limit here. It is just a limit of how many vaults you can have. Logical container, it's a container only. How many container you can have there? Approx 1000 vault will be supported for each account of AWS. And then this vault uses IAM and ACL to we can use IAM and ACL to apply some security condition on it, that who can access, who cannot access, those user permissions and all settings, security settings. Then the last term we have to know about the vault lock. So as per its name, this is the vault, and lock means securing it, putting a lock on it. So generally vault lock is used to deploy and enforce compliance control on Glacier vault. Like we have talked about security of the vault. So if you want to implement Glacier control on the Glacier vault, what the term is being used? It is called as a vault lock. So these are the three terms we have to just knowing about it. When we talk about Amazon Glacier, we have archives, we have vaults, we have vault lock. So now we are going to move to the next thing, that is life cycle actually. Before we go for life cycle, let's try to understand this diagram here. There is a term called S3 life cycle. There is a management policy, we can say, that is called as a S3 life cycle management policy. So S3 life cycle policy actually allow us to move or delete object based on their age and the rules as per the S3 bucket. So what we generally do is, for example, you have a bucket, S3 bucket. You know, S3 is a storage where you are keeping the frequent access data, right? Which you are frequently access all the time. So maybe you have created a bucket. On the top of bucket, you can set some policy, and that policy depends on your company condition. Maybe you are running an institute, organization, you are running maybe IT company, you are running maybe bank. What kind of company you have, which policy do you follow? On the basis of that, you can set a policy on your this bucket that after how many days, whatever data you keep here will become maybe infrequent in use. So you will be moving those files to the next type of a storage, that can be maybe Glacier, or that can be IA, infrequent access. What kind of a standard you want to transition them into? This is called as a S3 life cycle. So here I have tried to explain you. For example, a company say that by default, whenever a new user joins, the user data is going to be stored in S3 standard. For example, if you open any account in a bank, or take any other example. Let's say that let me take example of you guys. For example, you have enrolled for a course of AWS with me. So when you enrolled for that, I am giving you some video. I am going to give you maybe some reading material or something. So those material I will keep on the S3 bucket, because it is in frequent access. Today you have enrolled, so for 1 month, this is the program maybe for 1 month. So this 1 month you will be accessing it all the time, day and night, anytime you will be accessing, you will be using those material. But after 1 month, when your course is completed, I think you will not be accessing them all the time. So those that data, those video and everything for you will becomes infrequent access. So why I will occupy my why I will occupy my S3 storage there as a standard? So why not I will make it, I will move it to somewhere else like a S3 standard IA. If you remember, when we were creating a bucket, it was asking for the data classification. That time these terms were there. I am also going to show you here on the screen. You remember these things? When we were creating a bucket, it was asking me where we are putting the files. It was asking me like this. This file, this data which you are uploading, which storage class you want to keep in? Do you want to keep in a standard, meaning that frequent access, it will be using 3 availability zone? Do you want to keep it in intelligent tiering? Do you want to keep in a standard IA, meaning that it will be long lived infrequent access data? Or do you want to keep it in one zone IA, that is again going to be even long life, infrequent and non-critical kind of data if you have? So these are the storage. These are some of the storage class we have. We have a standard, intelligent tiering, a standard IA, one zone IA, Glacier, Deep Archive, or RR, reduced redundancy. So depending on that, what we maybe my policy is, I have said that those who enroll for my course, first 30 day it will be there on a standard. Once it becomes 30 day, I will move their data. It will be automatic actually. Keep in your mind, this task is going to be automatic. I just need to set the policy. Once policy I have set, this task will be done automatically. I don't have to move the data from here to there. It will be automatically moved my data from a standard data to the standard IA data. So next 60 day you will have again maybe infrequent access, but thereafter maybe you have now become expert. You don't need this study material, don't need notes, don't need video to watch. So I will make a policy that it will be even shifted. It will be having a transition of moving to one zone IA, non-critical data. Even if it get deleted, I don't care about it. And thereafter I can even say that once it becomes 1 year, put it in a Glacier as a archive file. Maybe they will think that after 2 year, 3 year, or any time they will wake up and they will say, I attended the training of Mr. Saurav, let me watch their video, or let me see the study material, maybe I forgot something. Then they can access it from the Glacier. Even thereafter I can even also say that maybe if it become 2 year, go and put it into the recycle bin simply. So that can be also set as a policy. This is what I am talking about, and this is called as a S3 life cycle policy. So another example I have, that is I have a S3 bucket. On my bucket I have said that this will be moving after 30 days as a Glacier from S3 service to move it to Glacier, and then after few years, maybe after 7 year, 5 year, 10 year, it will be deleted also. So how we can do this task rather than doing it manually? Amazon allow you to create such policy, and making that policy, it will be doing this task automatically, and that policy is called as the S3 life cycle policy. So we are going to see it practically too. So to go for that practical, you have to understand these two things, that what is life cycle policy management is and what are the storage classes are. So now let's move to do this, to see how to do this practical. So to do this practical, we have to just follow this path. First you have to go to the bucket, you have to go to the management of your bucket, and there you will get life cycle related option, and let me show you how to use it. So I go to my browser where I have my bucket already. So if I go to S3, I have a bucket which I created now for demonstrating the hosting website practical. So this bucket, maybe I want to say that on this bucket, whatever data I keep, maybe after 1 day or maybe after 2 days, I want it to maybe move it to somewhere else, or maybe after 30 days, whatever condition you have. So basically I want to make a policy here. So how to make the policy? Select your bucket, I mean go inside the bucket, and here you will go to the management area of your bucket. So go to management area. Here you see you have some option like life cycle, replication, analytics, metric, inventory. So right now I'm talking about life cycle. Right now there is no any policy related to life cycle. Once you will have, it will be showing you here. So I go to add life cycle rule, give any name of this rule. So maybe I give the name of this life cycle that let's say that student data go to, let me use shortcut. So a student, ST, a student Glacier rule. I'm just using some term, or just use any name, maybe a specific, a student Glacier rule. I just gave a name of it. Now it is asking me choose a rule or a scope on the basis of what this rule is going to work. So you remember last day when we were creating the data, we were putting the data, we were having an option to add the or tag it. So you want to limit the scope to a specific prefix or tag. Maybe you have defined the tag that you have said department IT, department AWS, departments ethical hacking. So do you want to apply this rule on a specific tag or a specific prefix? Then you will be going with this, and you have to look for that tag, maybe your department or anything, or maybe the course name, or you can apply on entire bucket also. So for me, as of now, I'm going to apply all objects in this bucket, everything, whatever I have in this bucket, this policy will be applied to all of them. I'm not classifying on the basis of tag. Then I go to next. Next question comes that where do you want to apply this transition for? Do you want to apply this transition on current version only or previous version also? What you want to use? This version is nothing else. Last session we have learned about S3 version, right? In version, for example, 9 o'clock you have uploaded a file, and then 9:30 you have uploaded another file with the same name. So how many versions you have? 2. So this is what it is asking you, that do you want to apply this transition on both file which is the current, and whatever the other previous versions you have, 6, 7, 10, 20 number of previous version if you have, or do you want to only apply for the current, what is the latest file you have, you want to only apply on that. So you can choose any one, whatever your requirement is. For me, I'm going to go with only current. I don't want to apply this transition on my previous version. So I go with the current version. Then next is for current version of for current versions of object, add a transition. What transition you want to do for the current version? What transition you want to do? So I go to add transition. And here is, this is the main part which you have to just define what exactly policy you are making for. So if you click on this drop down button, you have all transition option. Transition to a standard IA. So by default your data is a standard. From a standard, do you want to move it to a standard IA, intelligent tiering, one zone IA, glacier, or glacier deep archive? Where you want to move? Let me go back to my slide and I demonstrate it once again. These are the options. So by default my data is right now is in a standard. It is asking me if after few days, whatever day you are going to set, after that you want to shift that data into which a specific storage class. Do you want to maybe directly put them into the glacier mode, or do you want to put it maybe in one zone, or do you want to put it in a standard IA? You know what does it mean, right? So I am going to define here. I am going to say that maybe transition to glacier, and I set a day. For example, I set 30 days. Meaning that whatever file I will upload there, maybe today I have a video I created for today's session, I upload on this. So today is the creation date. From that day, once the 30 day will reach, immediately that video file will move to the glacier. So this is the condition I set. I just have to acknowledge or accept this condition, say to next. Now it is asking me, do you want to also go for configuring expiration? What is expiration is? Let me explain once again here. Right now you have said that your bucket data will move to glacier. That is after 30 days I have said. What if it reaches 2 years, 7 years, 5 years? Do you want to also make it to the recycle bin? Do you want to delete it also? If yes, then that one also you can configure. So I come back here. Do you want to configure the expiration? If yes, go for current or previous if you want to apply also. For current, maybe I set here 365 days, meaning that after 1 year it will become expired, it will be deleted, it will go to recycle bin. It will no longer accessible, it will no longer available for you, for any student. Or maybe I set here maybe just 180 days, meaning that I am just giving you option to watch my video up to 6 months. That's it. So this way you can set a expiration also. After setting that condition, cleanup, incomplete, multiple upload also you can define, but let's just go with the default and I go for the next. It is saying that you cannot enable cleanup expired object delete marker if you enable expiration. So here is the cleanup expired object delete marker. Last day when we talked about the version, you have seen delete marker. Whenever you delete the original file, already a new version is generated and that is having a bracket name delete marker. So do you want to also clean that one? You can also choose from here, and thereafter you can go with the next. For me, I don't want to maybe set expiration, so I can leave it blank also. It's up to you, so that only your data will be moved to glacier and then it will remain there in glacier for whole of the life. Next. So this is the condition. Just accept, click on save. So this way we have made a policy, we have made a rule here. Rule name is a student glacier rule. It is applied to whole bucket. I have not defined on the basis of tag or prefix. Then action for current version is it will transition will happen and it will move to the glacier. And action for previous version I have not set. I have only set for the current version. This way policy is done. Policy is set now, and we have to just wait for 30 days. Or if you set the policy for 2 days or 1 day, you will be able to see the effect in 1 day or 2 days only. So after that day, what will happen? The data which you have, like let me show you once again. I go to my bucket back. Once you go to the bucket, right now you see the data is there, but it which storage class? A standard. After 30 days, when you will come here, you will be seeing that this data is still there in your S3, but it will be showing you Glacier here, meaning that this file has now moved to the Glacier storage class. You know the all services, you know what is the benefit or demerit of them. So once this data will go to Glacier, the meaning that it will be costing me less for a storing, it will be only costing when I will retrieve the data. But if I have right now, like in a standard, it is in a condition of frequent access, so it will be chargeable more to store the data, and it will be all the time available. Whenever I will click, it will be accessible. If I put in Glacier, it may take some retrieval time to being accessed, and it will be giving me a cost whenever I retrieve. The cost will be on per GB retrieval. So this was something about S3. If I talk about, it was related to S3 lifecycle policy management. I have shown you practically how to do this, how to implement it. You can set maybe first transition you want to set it for this, then maybe you want to set for this, and then you want to go for recycle bin or expiration. Here was the name called expiration, or maybe you want to just go with like this. You can define any of them. So we have seen practical part of it. Now let's move to the next thing, that Amazon S3 storage versus Amazon Glacier. So here we can see the comparison between Amazon S3 versus Amazon Glacier. As you can see from here, Amazon S3 supports size up to 5 terabyte of each object. We know that in S3 we create a bucket. In the bucket we keep the data, and that is known as an object. So the maximum size of a single object can be up to 5 terabyte. That is when you are accessing your bucket maybe through the CLI. But if you use AWS console, what's the limitation? I guess you all know already, 160 GB. That's the biggest size of a single file can be uploaded on a Amazon S3. When we compare it with the Glacier support single archive file size up to 40 terabyte. That's a huge difference you can see, because here you see when we talk about data, there is a archive, it is called as archive, and a single archive can be up to 40 terabyte which you are uploading or which you are having at Amazon Glacier. Second point about the Amazon S3, you can see here it allow you to have a friendly key name. You can define any key name, where when we talk about in Glacier, every archive will have a system generated archive ID. That is what you are not going to define. It is system generated ID. It will be auto generated ID number. Third point is, in Amazon S3 you have an option, and generally if you enable it, then you only need to define which kind of encryption you will be setting, like server side encryption with maybe AES 256 or something. So encryption needs to be enforced this time when you are using S3 storage, or here you have a choice to have encryption or to not have encryption. But in Glacier, what is the condition is, archives are automatically encrypted. All archive which you keep there, no, it is going to be automatically encrypted. There is no option it is going to ask that either you want to encrypt or not encrypt. It will be automatically encrypted, and all archive files which is there on Glacier, they are already encrypted. Next thing, here you are going to see about AWS storage gateway. In previous session I have already discussed about the storage gateway, so here we can also have a small demonstration about it, a small explanation on it. Like a storage gateway, when we talk about it, help us to connect on premises network infrastructure with the AWS cloud. Like here you see, this is maybe a on premises, maybe there is a company which has on premises infrastructure. You have one application server, maybe one file server is there, maybe one NFS storage is there or something like that. So whatever data you are having in your on premises means within your organization, within your branch office, that data, if you want to send, if you want to have a very good low latency to upload this data on Amazon storage, then you can use a storage gateway. So storage gateway will be also running on within your premises, but it help you to get a low latency up to your Amazon S3, up to your Amazon Glacier to upload your files. So generally it is used, this storage gateway used for local low latency access to the most frequently used file while storing all data in Amazon S3. Sometime what happen, maybe you have a server here, but relevant files you always store on S3. So if you want to have a low latency between them, your server can easily or fastly if you want them to access the data stored on S3, you can have a storage gateway. Second is scheduled offsite backup to Amazon S3 for on-premises data stored volume. So maybe if you want to have a scheduled offsite backup means taking backup from your on-premises data and keeping it on offsite, keeping it on the Amazon cloud. So if you want to maybe schedule a backup like every 11:55 p.m. you want to start a backup, and that backup if you want to have in a right way, if you want to have a fast, you want to have a better latency, you can also again use the storage gateway there. So storage gateway works something like connecting point. It helps you to get in touch with the S3 with the proper security, proper encryption and all. Then here the last slide for today's lesson is, I have just tried to bring here that what are the basic data storage challenges were, or if even it was not challenges, what were the traditional methods were used, which is been replaced by the AWS solution. So here you see in our on-premises or in our general data center we use primary block storage, which has been now removed with the, or you can say it is replaced with the reduced SAN footprint. And what exactly the service we use here by the AWS, if you remember the name, it is EBS, elastic block storage. That's the one which has replaced it, primary block storage or sandbox. Then when we talk about primary file storage, so primary file storage which we have in on-premises has been removed. That was being actually here used NAS. What we use here now, we use EFS. So we have EFS here. Then we talk about archival storage. So obviously it has been eliminated, architecture, hardware and software, and nowadays we are using Glacier or Deep Glacier, you can say. Then we have disk-based backup storage has been also eliminated, backup hardware and software. Tape infrastructure and management, which was hard to manage and all. So now it has gone to a term called eliminate tape. AWS is using it. So there were everywhere you can see the change. Next generation gateway, next generation cloud storage, what they are using, that is what has been mentioned in this particular slide here, which altogether if I tell you, it is giving you a reducing the complexity if I compare with the previous condition, and plus it is also reducing the cost for the users. So if I talk about the next generation cloud storage, it is helping us to reduce the complexity plus reducing the cost. That's why every company nowadays is moving towards the cloud computing. Everyone is looking to have the service of cloud computing. So that was all in this particular session. Now we are moving towards the question and answer section. So let's go for the first question. First question for today's lesson is, a static web page hosting does not require any web page. Do you think it is true or a false? Whatever you think, if it is true or false, you can comment in the comment section, or you can send it on the chat. Generally put in the comment section. Then the second question for today's lesson is it mandatory to configure S3 life cycle policy? Is it mandatory? Do you think it's very mandatory that you have to configure S3 lifecycle policy, or is it optional? True or false, you can say. S3 object lock can be done. Sorry for two-time writing done here. So S3 object lock can be after creation of bucket. Do you think it's possible that once you have already created a bucket, thereafter if you want to go and make object lock on it, do you think it's possible? Yes or no, true or false, you can say. Question number 4 is, can we use S3 bucket to store EBS snapshot? So again the question is it possible? So if you remember, I have already discussed about it that S3 bucket either we use it to store the EBS snapshot or not. So accordingly you can answer about this question. And the final question from today's lesson is, can we set transition on both current and previous version? So can we set a transition on current version of the data as well as on the previous version, or can we set it on only maybe current or maybe only previous? So what do you think? Is it possible to set transition on both or not? So you can answer in yes or no. That's all in this today's session. I hope this video was informative enough for all of you, and I would like to thank you for watching.